a few years before I got into a leadership role. New office, new desk, new team, fresh tie. I was like all gung-ho, something extremely bold and beautiful is going to happen in my life. With that newfound honor, I entered into a meeting room, a conference, to address a set of dealers who were not very happy with the performance of the company. And I pretended, like a bold and brave man, that I will not be scared. I'll show up authoritative, significantly, and all in control, and I'll talk to them don'ts before do's. Because I have been growing up that leaders ought to be serious and always ought to be in control. So the meeting started. I used my deep baritonic voice, mixed up with corporate policy and manuals, and then gave a blend of buzzwords, jargons, do's and don'ts, and a huge set of key performance indices, KPIs. By the time I ended, there weren't any applause. I looked for some, and I saw most of them did not even speak. Possibly they did not even listen. Some of them were completely disengaged and yawning, releasing some extra carbon footprints. And maybe some of them also flat-lined. I realized, and that hit me very stark, that I actually spoiled the moment. I lost an opportunity. The vibe is gone. And the reason why I was to lead a team of dealers has completely been obliterated. So, ladies and gentlemen, we all learn leadership. However, we define leadership competencies, we talk about preferences, we say a leader has to be a good decision maker, problem solver, business acumen, strategic thinkers, vulnerability, resilience. But what's that one or two things that's missing? Do we ever talk that leader has to demonstrate humor? Do we ever say that the leader also has to practice levity? These two has never got into a cut, neither in any B school syllabus, nor in any management workbooks, or leave aside any leadership coaching conversations. Why? Because we have all been grown up and sold the myth that work is serious business. And serious business means serious people working with serious faces and solving serious problems. But we never realized that in between that seriousness, there is a lot that is getting lost. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring in forth a very simple idea that leadership actually can benefit from understanding and practicing humor as a competence and levity as a style. And when that happens, we get a new generation of leaders who sort of helps their teams to float, shine, and lift performances like nobody has done before. So, I looked at science and I said, if humor can lift emotions, can it also lift teams? And physics said the answer is yes. Remember Archimedes, the Greek philosopher cum scientist, back 2,200 years before, had an eureka moment such that he had a skin in the game, came on the roads and celebrated what he has found. His principle, popularly called the Archimedes principle, said an object floats when its upward force is higher than its downward weight. I take this analogy onto work. What's the upward force? That is humor. That is lightness. That is a moment, a shared laugh happens when one of your team members says, I got 5 meetings in the day, and now I'm going to join the fill the 6. And what's the heavy part of it? The heavy part of it is the seriousness that has got ingrained, that as professionals, we need to put up a serious face because work is serious. And heaviness rules. And when heaviness becomes heavier than the lighter humor, that part of it, we sink, we drown, there is burnout, there is stress, there is work-related disorders that we all come to see. That's one aspect. Let's look at the clinical part of it. When we laugh, the smiling faces releases dopamine. It's the brain's proxy to a high five. It reduces a chemical called cortisol, and that's the stress hormone, which ideally should be generated by unruly traffic or nagging newborns. It also helps to reduce or release oxytocin, and this is the I like you chemical. So if in a meeting, if you share a good joke, you have a higher chance of people liking you. And when there is likeness, it builds authentic trust. And when there is trust, there is flow of energy, there is connection, there is creativity. And trust inspires, trust influences. And I think as leaders, this is our core role to create inspiration and influence around the workforce such that goals are achieved. I'll take you to a story. I worked for a tech company. We used to have monthly management council meetings. These meetings were to discuss the performance of the month for the specific business unit. It used to be attended by chairman and the set of other C-suite leaders. In one such meeting on the 24th of December, my previous BU head was presenting, and he was questioned as to why what the chairman had recommended the last month hasn't been implemented. There were no answers that could have been accepted by the team. The chairman turns red-faced, he shouldered the CEO and said, "Give me a piece of paper. I want to resign and resign now." The room froze. All characters were petrified. Somewhere, my funny bone tickled. I rolled myself up, plugged in the deck, practiced the pause, gathered some courage, and said, "Sir, wish you and everybody in the room a Merry Christmas." The chairman jumped out as if he has got the catching straw. And he said, "You know, you have a great sense of humor." Everybody came at ease. The chairman continued to serve the organization, and the organization grew. We saved the day of embarrassment. And I was wondering, what is the joke that I cracked? Roll it back to stories, and I realized that humor is a skill. It is not a born talent. It is something that you can develop as a muscle, and the more you use, the more stronger you get at it. So you just need to be looking at few absurdities that happens all of us around. You just need to poke little gentle fun about yourself, and you just need to be making sure that these are light and loaded. You need not be the office clown to carry this flag of humor as a leader out there. I was once observing one of my team member waiting outside the leader's room for a review. He had a green face. He was really nervous about the moments of truth that are going to be emerged. And while I was passing by, I sort of cracked a little fun at him and said, "Looks like you are standing out, but you will have an outstanding meeting." Later on, it turned up that the meeting went on really well, and it was a career-changing discussion with his manager. So we can all start small. We can put that little carton on the slide deck or a poster in the room. We can always begin a discussion by saying 2 truths and a harmless lie. We can create a cover title of an escalation discussion saying crisis management plan, 102 degrees Fahrenheit, red hot state, let's solve. So it's all within us to create that levity, to create that lightness, so that humor helps us to do that creative burst. It helps us to communicate easily, and it helps us to connect and engage us with this conversation. With all these good things happening, what is a statutory warning? Humor is like the green mirch, the Indian mirch masala. A little adds a lot of taste. Too much puts in a lot of fire. And some people are completely allergic to it. So when you are using this, just ensure that you are not punching down, you are lifting up. Because the moment you punch up, punch down, there is offense, there is restraint, and there is denial. And there is a complete barrier of conversation that happens. I was training a folks of senior managers on a topic called executive presence. And we were on the subject of authenticity. One of the gent from the team turned out to be a challenger to my conversation. It always happens in a training where there are some folks who would be hijacking sessions, and we love them. But at some moment, my composure broke. He was a little stockier built than me. And I said, folks, if he and me come back and write a story that we just won a half marathon, how authentic will that be? The whole folks, they laughed, they smiled, they giggled at the cost of a BMI. And I realized that I completely cut off the guy because he gave me a stern stare and did not show up after lunch, and that was too late for me to be tendering a private apology. So the disclaimer is humor, when worked and addressed at the right flavors, at the right context, understanding the emotions, regulating own emotions, it actually can create more value and more respect as a leader. So what's the new mantra that I'm proposing? If I ask you, can you put in some humor in your work? And if your response is, my work is serious and I cannot put in flavors of humor, that's unusual. I will say that humor does not make your work less serious. It makes it more human. And in the age of algorithms, of AI, and automation, being human may just be your compelling, unfair advantage. So, the invitation to all of you is, whether you are stuck in a sticky traffic while getting into a business call, or whether you are handling reckless operational review meetings, or getting frustrated in pouring emails, just step up and say, I do my work with humor, seriously. Say it with conviction, say it with energy, say it with belief. And when you do this, you will see there are ways and means that you are figuring it out how to add those drops and pallets of humors in your everyday part of it. So, ladies and gentlemen, I do my work seriously with humor. So may I wish that you all have more tighter deadlines, I wish that you have a lot more emails in your inboxes, and I wish that you still add a lot of laughter in the work that you do, whether at work or whether at home. Because laughter gives us the feeling that we are still alive. Laughter helps us to be connected. Laughter helps us to communicate. So why lose that opportunity? I do my work with humor seriously. Will you? Thank you.